Good evening, everybody. I call to order the Bethany City Council meeting for Tuesday, January 7th, 2020. Would you please rise for the invocation and join me in prayer? And Mr. Herron, will you lead the flag salute after prayer? Heavenly Father, I thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening. I thank you for wisdom, courage, and insight. I thank you for your guidance, and we give you all the glory, honor, and praise in Jesus' name. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 1 is consent docket A through B. Do I have any questions or a motion for approval?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Please cast your votes.
All approved.
Item 2 is a public hearing item, consideration of possible adoption of resolution number 1579, amending the comprehensive land use plan of the city of Bethany by designating certain property at 7121 Northwest 39th Street from single-family residential to multifamily. Do we have a report or information on this?
I do have a report. There we go. Okay, this is for a rezone for 7121 Northwest 39th Street. Susan Brown is the applicant and property owner who is requesting the rezone. Property information. This property is abutted on northeast and south side by single-family residential, and then on the west side it's educational and institutional. The college there is on the west side of this property. Lot characteristics, it's 50 feet wide, 145 feet deep. It sits at 0.17 acres. The existing structure there right now is what staff would consider a legal non-conforming structure that's zoned for single-family residential, and the applicant is asking for it to be rezoned RM for multifamily residential. There is a 2-inch line, water line that runs along the front of the property, as well as a 6-inch adjacent to the property, and sanitary sewer line is an 8-inch along the back, and there's an additional to the south and across the street. Project information. The applicant's requesting the zoning to maximize the use of the property. Although the current zoning of this is R1, single-family residential, it does appear to staff from the county assessor's records that this location has been being used as a triplex for quite some time. Staff would consider this an illegal non-forming use with a legal non-conforming structure, and updating the zoning would bring the structure into compliance. It's already being used as a triplex. It just is being used under the wrong zoning. The comprehensive plan strategy map calls for this area in the future to be a downtown mixed-use district. The parking requirements for multifamily zoning is 2 spots per unit, which the applicant feels they have space to make that happen, and that will not be an issue at this location. The county assessor records show each of the living areas in this triplex at an average of 1095 square feet. And the applicant is proposing 2 ADA wheelchair accessible units on the bottom and then another unit upstairs. This is your zoning map. The yellow is single family residential on our zoning map. The blue across the street is our educational and institutional, and then that red area you see at the top is our commercial general or CG. And then our comprehensive plan strategy map. I know it's a little hard to read, but I've done a circle up there at the top, if you can see in red. That shows where this location is at. And according to the strategy map, this was talked about being a downtown mixed-use area in the future. This is a view of the front of the property as it sits right now. Well, not even as it sits right now. They've done a lot more work since then, so this is what came off of Google. They have been doing work and cleaning it up. We drove past there today, and they had people out there working, so this is not exactly how it looks right now. And then a side view. And this is what came off the Oklahoma County Assessor's website, the sketch. So as you can see, the county assessor even has it as a triplex broken up into 3 separate living units. There are no phone calls, letters, or public hearing comments on this case for the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, and P&Z did unanimously vote to recommend this for approval, as long as staff and our attorney thought that this fit into what a mixed-use district is, and as long as the applicant could provide 2 spots per unit for a total of 6 spots, which the applicant feels that they can. Probably one of the first questions you're going to ask is, why has it been being used as a triplex, and how did that happen? My answer to that is, we've gone back and pulled records as far back as we can. There's nothing that we have in our records that show anyone ever pulling permits for work to be done there. That doesn't mean that it wasn't, but more probably the better answer is it was work done back in the day when things were not permitted correctly, or work was done on Saturdays and we weren't keeping. That's just a very honest answer for y'all.
Does anyone on council have any questions before
I have a
I ask the public?
How far back do we have records indicating that it was used as a duplex or triplex?
The county assessors, it goes back to, I'll have to look. The county assessor's record looks like it is from probably 1980.
And if it was before our ordinance took into place, it would be grandfathered in as a non-conforming
Yes,
use
staff would look at
before
it as
1970.
74, I believe, 76 or 74. Staff is looking at this as a legal, non-conforming use.
Currently?
Yes, currently.
So if it's currently legal non-conforming, even if we don't approve it, can they continue to use it like it is?
No, not if they're going to go in and do work and update it and do renovations, no. And the applicant has said that if this is not, and the applicant is here this evening, or a representative for the applicant, if this is not granted, they will probably just do, say, 1 unit or the bottom portion and hold off on doing anything else until a time they feel like maybe they can try again and it would get approved. You're welcome.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
In reading through the presentation, I it wasn't quite clear what the exterior materials were going to be.
Okay, I will, if you'll introduce yourself, and then she can answer that question better
Hello.
than myself.
Hello, I'm
Hold the
Phyllis-
mic down to your mouth, please.
Certainly. Hello, my name
Thank
is
you.
Phyllis Fry. I am, my sister is Susan Brown, who is the owner. We bought this for the intention of creating rentals for her retirement. Exterior, we're planning on putting zip board, which is, you've seen it before, it's green board. It's got a 30-year warranty. And we're planning on putting a layer of foam around the exterior of the structure with a zip board on top.
Okay.
It is our intention to create places that people can live comfortably. And so we've put in, the things we have done, we've all done through permitting. We've done a new roof. We've done foam underneath that new roof with a 6-inch foam. We've had essential heat and air put in the upstairs unit. And we're having new electrical wires put in the upstairs unit. The unit had been derelict for a number of years and was a hoarder house. We removed well, 8 dumpsters full of stuff before we began any of this. And subsequently, while we were pulling out the old electricity, because the electric wire had been vandalized and the plumbing had been vandalized. So we're basically offering to do for the city a good deed to create a space that they can get people who go to the grocery store and buy gas and live someplace and have a nice place to live. And really what we're asking is basically to do what it has done in the past, but to do it better with newer and approved and inspected things.
I have to say that I admire you for thinking of those that need the handicap living quarters. We have a home that's built that way before ADA, and they are very much needed in our city.
As I said, my sister is a nurse, and my niece-in-law is in a wheelchair, and we had difficulty finding a place for her and my nephew to live when they moved to the city after being in Stillwater.
So your family's going to be your...
No, they found a house, and we made it wheelchair accessible for them. But my sister decided to do a housing for her retirement. She actually worked in the Bethany hospital when you guys had a hospital here for a number of years before it got turned into a different sort of facility. And she works for the VA right now, and she's aware of the need of people who are in wheelchairs.
So you'll be able to rent them.
We think we'll be able to rent them. We have done a number of, all the ones she's required for her retirement, we have been things that had fires or abandoned or whatever, because we can then go in and make all the doorways 36 inches and put enough space by the toilets you can transfer, and all the universal design aspects, because we believe that's something that's going to be needed on an ongoing basis. More and more people are getting older, and more people are going to need those facilities.
So I think one of the questions that Mr. Carlson brought up in the P&Z meeting was about the mixed use versus the multi-residence is my question. And if, I haven't heard directly from the attorney, but the mixed use that is in the comp plan, is this going to fit nicely in that? Are we going to be okay to have this multi-residential in that mixed use in the future?
There's a lot of discussion about that at the meeting, at the planning and zoning meeting. I'm going to let Ms. McClellan address that.
Okay.
Mixed use, staff believes so, and I think staff believes so, and I think planning and zoning ultimately at the end believed so. When you look at a mixed use district, you're looking at different types of housing, multi-use, maybe townhomes, maybe garden homes. You're looking at making a very walkable district where you also can walk to the store down the street. Obviously, we're not there yet. That's why, it's a plan for the future. But if we get there, or as we get there, yes, I believe that this triplex would fit into that plan. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
That answers my question.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That's all I have.
Any other questions?
May I say something?
Yes.
The next item, 2.1, is simply the ordinance, and it goes along with this. It's the same address, but a resolution and an ordinance are required. So I wanted to say that so we don't have to do this all over again. Thank
Okay.
you.
Mr. Powell?
What's the size of the individual units going to be?
I have more elaborate plans.
The mic, please.
My apologies. I had the more elaborate plans for the planning commission. The upstairs is about 1,600 square feet. The downstairs, and that'll be a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. It's too hard to make it wheelchair accessible because it's upstairs. So the downstairs, though, both have hard surfaces on all of the surfaces, and so it's easy enough to make them wheelchair accessible. And they'll each be a little over 1,000 square feet. So 2-bed with what the sort of thing that we're talking about with our plumbers is the sort of rooms that are wet rooms. You wheel in and it's all tile and there's a drain in the floor. So it's easy for someone who is in a wheelchair to get themselves clean and do all the things they need to do. So those are what we have planned, and that's our intent.
Are there any other questions? Is there anyone from the public that wishes to address this or has any questions? P&Z voted to approve this, and your staff report is in line with that. Do I have a motion for approval?
Motion to approve, please.
Do I have a second? Second. Please cast your votes.
All approved.
Item 2.1 is also a public hearing item. Yes, please.
Consideration and possible approval of ordinance number 1895, an ordinance amending the comprehensive plan and zoning ordinances and map of the city of Bethany, Oklahoma by including an RM multifamily use district. The property described as Oak Hill Subforest Highland, 003016 in Bethany, Oklahoma, County, Oklahoma, as more particularly described hereinafter, and declaring an emergency.
Item 2.1A is approval on ordinance number 1985 on reading by title only. Do I have a motion for approval?
Motion to
Do I have
approve.
a second?
Second.
Please cast your votes.
All approved.
2.1B is approval of section 1 of ordinance number 1985. Do I have a motion for approval?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Please cast your votes.
All approved.
Item C is the emergency section. Is there a need to approve the emergency section?
There is.
I'd
Do I-
make a motion for the emergency clause.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Please cast your votes.
Westmoreland, yes. Palmer, yes. Powell, yes. Goodwin, yes. Sandoval, yes. Heron, no. Hunter, yes. Larson, yes.
Item 3 is consideration and possible adoption of resolution number 1580 establishing utility fees and charges in accordance with section 50.03 of the City of Bethany ordinances for the City Council of the City of Bethany to establish by resolution rates and charges governing city utility services, including monthly service fees, connection fees, and charges and deposits. Do I have any questions?
I can provide a little bit of background and update
Okay.
if you'd like for me to, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
This particular resolution brings before you a change in some of the fees that we use in our utility billing and for the establishment of utilities in the city. Currently, we have some problem with collections of those utility fees. For example, we collect approximately $600,000 a month in utility fees, and currently I believe about a quarter of those, about 25% of those, are in the 30 to 90 day past due range. And part of what we've noticed there that we're not doing that other cities do is we only charge $1 late fee. That's a big part of this resolution. We're proposing that we bring that more in line to what other cities are doing and move that to a $10 late fee, and that's for residential. There's also a commercial utility late payment of 10%, and there may be some discussion here on that amount tonight. But the other fees are basically connection fees and solidifying fees on return checks and ACH deposits, as well as if we have to turn off the meter for non-payment. We've also proposed in here, in addition to the current $25 fee, that for a second occurrence of that, we would charge $50, which is basically starting to cover the cost of us having to do that, because we don't believe the $25 goes towards that. And then there's also an additional fee if for some reason we have to cut it off and pull the meter. So I'd be happy to entertain any questions about this particular resolution if I can help.
Are there any questions?
I have several. I'd like to see a few things changed on here. One, all of the late fees are currently the day after it's due. Most everybody gives a grace period of typically 5 days. Especially, I'm not sure with our billing cycle, if it's due on a Sunday, and I'm not sure if that's possible or not. You know, is that possible to be due on a Sunday or a Saturday?
I'm not sure if that's the case at this point. There was some discussion beforehand of granting a 5 calendar day period to that. That would be a period where we wouldn't charge the late fee until that time, and staff would have no objection to doing that.
Yeah, I think at the minimum, we need to do 5 days. And I do think on the commercial utility, 10% is extremely excessive. We're trying to be business friendly, and I would imagine there's a number of our commercial users that could have $1,000 bills, the public schools, the universities, and a 10% late fee, especially the next day, is $100. That's not, I don't see penalties as a place that we need to generate a revenue from. I understand we're trying to get it paid, and we truly just want the revenue coming in. And then the meter, so that's, and honestly, I don't have an idea on the commercial. I'm not sure if we want to do a percentage or maybe just do a flat $20 fee on the commercial. Because on a commercial, I know we have probably a wide range from $60 bills to multiple $1,000 bills. And I'm not sure if percentage would be harder for staff to calculate or if it'd be easier on staff just to have a flat rate.
If I can add to that, so you know, our basic residential bill, and part of the reason we did figure that is our residential rate of $10 late payment would be, you know, roughly 10% of a residential bill. Now, we do have commercial bills that run the gamut of up to, I'm not sure what they go up to, but they get into the thousands of dollars, and that was the idea behind that, is to charge a percentage, and we would have the ability to do that in order to keep that close and in conjunction with the same percentage that we're charging for residential. Does that make sense?
It does. I don't know. I think if we have commercial customers get a $100 late fee, I mean, they're going to rightfully be pretty upset over that, especially if they're just a few days late. I would like to see that changed.
What would you recommend?
Maybe just a flat $20 or a percentage if we want a lower percentage. But I don't have a hard number in my mind.
5 to 7%? I mean, I know where you're coming from, having been a business owner, and it gets tight sometimes from business at that. And from reading the paper today, it looks like it's going to get worse in Oklahoma before it gets better. So, you know, I don't want to put a hardship on those that are providing businesses in our city, which is in turn providing services to our citizens. So 10% on a $1,000 to $5,000 bill that's pretty high. It would hurt for a small business person. Might not hurt the big corporation, but it will hurt the small business person. So what are we looking at, say 6%?
Yeah.
Would that
I'm
be
open to
enough,
that.
6%?
I'm open to that.
If I may, Mr. Brown, did we have staff do a study with other cities and find out what they're doing? Are we consistent with what's going on in the metropolitan area?
I believe we are, especially when we looked at the late fee for residential. We do know that. Do we have a indication on the percentage? Was that similar to other cities also? Stacy Peck's indicating, yes, she's actually the one that performed the study on those two items.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Of the 25%, Mr. Brown, you mentioned that we're in the 30 to 90 day period. Do we know what percentage of those would be commercial accounts?
I do not know that information right offhand, no.
The other thing I would like to see change is when the customer gets their meter turned off, we're going to do a $25 fee the first time and then $50 the additional time. I know that's probably trying to curb them from getting it shut off. But if we can go out and manpower do it for $25 the first time. I'm not sure why, if they get down again and can't make their water payment, why we would charge them $50 the next time. Nothing changed on the city's part to increase their fine. So I'm not sure why that fine would double the next time. And one of the many calls that I get as a council member is people of all backgrounds with their water turned off, and they're calling trying to get help, and these fees just rack up, and they already couldn't make their water bill. They have their kids at home, they're elderly, those are usually the one calls I get. And, you know, the fees just add up, and just, it doesn't help anything out. It's not helping out their family, it's not helping us sell water. And at the end of the day, we just want to sell water. We want our residents to have water, to have sewer, to be able to clean, to have a sanitary condition. We make our money off selling the water, not in fees. So,
I think in the past, I don't know if this is still possible under today's times, but in the past, if there was a dire hardship situation, staff or manager, I don't remember who, could waiver or work out a payout plan or something like that. Now, I understand where you're coming from with the additional fees. I don't know what percentage of the people that are late, are they habitually late, and how are we going to try to encourage that to not happen? And sometimes the only way to do that is to hit the pocket, unfortunately. But I think that if there's a situation where there's illness or a family tragedy or something like that, you know, it happens, I think there is a provision for that, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe, and Mr. Caton can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that that was a council, to forgive somebody's bill, that had to come before council, and council had to decide whether they would forgive a bill or not. And city got out of that practice years ago. I do know that the city has worked with people on payment plans, I believe, to be able to get them caught up.
Our charter
Yeah.
does allow the council to do that.
Yeah.
I am aware of that, and I have done it on one occasion.
Yeah.
So I know it can happen, but it was a very, very bad situation. But it's not a practice that we want to be too lenient with, because we don't always have all the facts. So it is something that we can fall back on. But I would be curious to know how many of our late situations are repetitive, not just once a year, but repetitive. And I don't know, do you have any way of telling that or not? No way to tell that with our system. So that kind of puts us all in a rock and a hard place.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
is there an actual written policy, a hardship policy, that the city has in the form of an ordinance or anything that would address that, given some specific, requirements or whatever the situation is? We could apply the facts to the ordinance to determine if something could be provided to the resident related to a payment plan or something like that?
Can I answer that?
Mm-hmm.
There is an ordinance already in place that discusses this very issue, and a person that's water is going to be terminated, which is why you pull a meter or turn off a meter, is entitled to a hearing. And but your ordinance says a utility city official in charge of utility billing. And also says a turn-on charge in an amount set by the city council. So that's the current way the hearing goes, is in front of the utility billing official, whoever that is.
Mr. Mayor, so there isn't a policy related to payment plans, that's just at the discretion of the city employee?
That's what it says, yeah, that's what it says.
I'm not aware of an ordinance that would allow us to do that, and
What does
to
Oklahoma City?
a current ordinance that would allow us to
I
do
guess
that.
we don't need to reinvent the wheel. What do other municipalities do in that situation? Is our ordinance comparable to Oklahoma City, or do they have a payment plan provision?
We'd have to study that portion.
Do you know what, Mrs. Peck, do you know what other cities do in regards to this?
Good evening. My name is Stacy Peck. I'm helping with utility billing at this time. Is this on?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay. So previously, I worked for the city of Yukon in the utility billing and then the court administrator from there. The city of Yukon, along with the city of Bethany, currently has what we call a type of payment arrangement where you can call in and we do it in the system. It is similar to a grace period. We allow you to do at least 10 days after your due date without incurring any type of late fees. You do have to call in for that information. But once you do break that payment arrangement with us, then you are charged the fee from there, and then the cutoff procedure does begin. On payment plans, I would have to look into what Oklahoma City does. But I know that the city of Yukon, they do what is considered at the city of Bethany, giving basically 10 days, and then the cutoff procedure does start if you don't have that. What you have to remember is these are services that we have already provided. Usually it's a 30-day time period, and then from there you're given another 15 or 20 days before your due date, and then after that time the 5 days would possibly kick in for the grace period, and then we allow another 10 days or so before you're even in the cutoff period. So you can see how this would kind of ramp up month after month. And with your deposit rate, what you're trying to do is really get that collection in before either tenants are leaving or people are leaving and absorbing that deposit, so we don't have such a bad debt, write-offs, things like that. That we're going to have to go and collect further. With the way that utilities are done, you cannot go against someone's credit. So basically, you're at the just trying to find these people, get it collected, and move forward. The majority of people, if they owe a bill like this, if they're not paying it within the first year, more than likely they're not going to pay it until they're getting service with this same utility once again. And that's when we're trying to catch them and trying to make that payable to the city. But like I said, these are services that are already rendered. These are getting written off after 120 days, which is what you have to do to be able to even move them to the collection process.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Is it, given your experience, can you collect that through legal means by way of the city attorney to obtain those funds within the time period? And can you garnish somebody's wages related to lack of payment for utility bills?
We have contracted with Purdue, which is the collection agency we do use in the court system, just recently for the water department. That is something that they have started doing. I believe the first city that they're starting with is Nichols Hills. The problems with garnishments is you have to give adequate notice, but then you also have to find either their bank account or you have to find where they're working to be able to get those garnishments done.
Well, I know, but if you get a judgment, then you can obtain information from the appropriate state agency related to their employment status. And then is it possible that the city municipal court system could obtain funds on behalf of the city related to an outstanding utility bill?
Not to my knowledge.
Any other questions?
I do. Could I get a little more understanding on the difference between line 5 and line 6, or item 5 and 6? It talks about the utility service fee of turning on the turn-on fee is $25, second time is $50, but then number 6 is an additional $10 fee for when they pull the meter. So is that compounded?
It would be. What we're finding is that the 25 could possibly get someone's attention. The 50 would definitely get someone's attention, but you have residents out there that have the knowledge to turn those water meters back on. Once we're seeing that those are turned back on, then we would pull the meter or lock the meter. And that's the extra cost that we're asking for. Typically, we don't catch that at least a week until either cutoffs are done or even another reread is done. And so what we're trying to do is curb that temptation of going out and turning that water back on.
Why would we not just lock it out the first time instead of just turning the valve?
We don't have enough locks. People can cut the locks. The other thing is,
Locks
I
are
would just say,
inexpensive. I mean, it seems like if we're gonna make a trip out there and we're gonna turn off their water, we just put a padlock on it.
What were you going to say?
Mr. Caton?
I don't know.
Ms.
Mr. Caton?
Ms. Peck, quick question before
Sure.
Steve gets up here.
Sure.
There's also a huge deterrent here. The ordinance states that unlawful use of water is a $750 fine or 60 days in jail. Now, that's a pretty good deterrent. If you want to go out and turn your water back on, that may be what happens next, not a $50 charge or a $10 charge. You may go to jail for a couple of months.
There's a
So,
proof
Mr. Mayor,
problem there.
That's a function
Chris?
of the municipal government related to an ordinance in a criminal matter against the resident because he did not properly use water and basically took it from the city. So my point is, in my last questioning, is I think that in some way, I think the municipal court can address some of these issues. And I don't know if that's an available option at this time. That's kind of where we need to go, or is that something that's unavailable, or is it something that we should look into?
Most people that turn the meter back on do it when nobody's watching. And so they say, I didn't do it. Chief Cole has a fancy police word for that they can't arrest or write tickets for that, but usually there's no witnesses and they don't fess up to it. To answer your question on the cutoff, a good percentage of the cutoff, within 20 minutes of their water getting cut off, they're down here paying the bill. And so we run out and turn it off. Mr. Herron, to put a lock on is actually a lot harder than it sounds, because usually you have to dig it out because you got to get more room in that little meter box for the lock. So it's actually quite a mechanical endeavor to put the lock on and then to sort of take it back off. Although that's actually why we don't lock at the first go, because a lot of them just, within 30 minutes we go back out and turn it back on anyway. And that's why they don't lock it right up. And yeah, we have seen them break them off a lot.
It's usually what I do, is race back up here and pay the bill.
I do have just one more comment about the payment plan issues that we were talking about. And the city attorney is correct about and traditionally at least, the finance director or city clerk would work out payment plans with people as far as in the past they've done that. We also have a foundation that's here to help indigent people that cannot pay their bills, and there's a committee supposed to be that would do that, so people can contribute to that and help out their fellow citizens if they are on hard times. So we do have that option as well.
How much money is currently in that fund?
I'm not privy to those sorts of numbers.
Does it exist, Ms. Peck?
That would be a question for Berkeley Pinner.
Is that something that
I
would
think the
be
city manager's
added to your
office
utility
normally
bill?
did that.
Like somebody to be able to contribute to that, would that be on their utility bill?
A helping
I don't know if we
hand
have it
kind of
on there
thing,
now.
yeah.
Yes, we do.
Do we? Okay.
Yes.
The available funds would be approximately $300.
But there's not a whole lot of helping hands.
I'm sure this august body could encourage their constituents to help out there. Anyway, that's all I got about the locking the lids.
Thank
Do we
you.
currently charge fees for turning off and turning back on water? I think we currently charge $25, don't we?
We
For a
currently,
cutoff?
if your water is turned off for non-payment, we currently charge $25.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I just concur with Councilman Herron that it be the cost for the service and not a arbitrary number just for the second shut off, but it be for the cost of going out there.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I don't know if Claudia would be the best person to answer this or who, but does the ordinance, as far as allowing the hearing, does any of that allow for the waiving of the fees? Or is that something that can only be done by council?
Apparently, the utility, whatever they call them here, city official in charge of utility billing is authorized to make sure that the customer's service not be discontinued and have the authority to make a final determination of the customer's complaint. So that contemplates they would be able to make a payment plan or whatever they need to do. Water is a service that you can't, it's like you have to have due process to take somebody's water away. So that's what this is for.
My view would be that if you're going to be a problem where you're going to get your water cut off constantly, I think it serves the city's interest to have an additional penalty to discourage that, but I would also like to see the ability to waive that fee in hardship cases that would be handled administratively rather than having to come to the council every time.
If I could, I've started working with utility billing probably the last 30 days. I think you would be astounded to see how much money, how much time, how much effort it takes to collect these items, how many complaints you get. And I just think you would be surprised to see how someone can come up with it when they need to. Like I said, these are services we've already provided. They're already 45 days out at minimum. The first week I was over in utility billing, 1 week, 160 cutoffs. That is not even possible for 2 meter readers to perform in one day. We still have to read meters. We still have to provide rereads for challenges where we didn't read a meter correctly and it's an abnormal read. We're not giving adequate time and attention to our new residents or our transfer residents, the people that have paid on time. That has been curbed by doing some of what we're noticing and some of what we're enforcing. This week, our cutoffs were only down to 60. So that shows you that people need to budget wisely, just like the city.
I don't know that we need to talk on people's motives on why they pay or don't pay their bill. I think that's a bit of an overreach on our part. We want to make sure that we're funding things and keeping to ordinance and things, but I don't want us as councilors or whatever to be a judge of why someone did or didn't pay.
Okay.
Mayor, if I may, I will make a motion.
Yes, sir.
I would make a motion to pass resolution 1580, changing the residential grace period to 5 days before the late fee is incurred, changing the commercial late fee to 5% with a 5-day grace period, and changing the turn-on fee of the first time of $25 and subsequent times, it just stays at a flat $25. And then on item 6, the pulling the water meter of $10 first time and subsequent times to stay at $10. And I will say, sorry, that's the end of the motion. I will make a comment. If we continue to have problems, I mean, we can come back in 6 months and address this. I mean, we're trying to get things caught up and we're going, and if it continues to be a problem, I mean, please bring it back. I mean, let's see if there's not another thing. We can readdress it at any time.
I'd like to second his motion.
Could I ask for a clarification in it before? Would you be, clarify that that's 5 calendar days?
Yes, that the grace period would be 5 calendar days.
I have a motion. I have a second. Please cast your votes.
All approved?
Item 4 is consideration of possible adoption of ordinance number 1968, and our city attorney had some thoughts prior to the meeting. So
Thank
I'd
you,
like to share.
Mr. Mayor. I've had several questions about this possible franchise ordinance, and I would like to invite the city council to write me separately with the questions they have or suggestions they have, so that I can incorporate this and move forward with it.
Do I have a motion?
So that, and I guess I would request it to be tabled.
I'll make a motion to table.
Do I have a second? Please cast your votes.
All approved?
Item 5 is an update discussion of possible action concerning the water contamination and water well efforts.
Mr. Mayor, I don't have any information at this time, but I do hope to have some information very soon for the council.
Thank you. Item 6 is proposed executive session. Executive session is necessary for the purpose of confidential communication concerning a pending investigation, claim, or action concerning damage to a city sewer line. Do I have a motion to enter executive session?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Please cast your votes.
All approved?
We will return. We are out of executive session. No action was taken in executive session. Item 7 is proposed action on the above matter following executive session. Do I have a motion?
Motion for the city attorney to move forward in accordance with the discussions held in executive session.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Please cast your votes.
Westmoreland, yes. Palmer, yes. Powell, yes. Goodwin, yes. Sandoval, yes. Heron, abstain. Hunter, yes. Larson, yes.
Item 8, citizens' opportunity to address the council on general topics related to city business or services. There's a 3-minute limit. No action may be taken on matters under this item. Do we have anyone wishing to address the council?
Arvell Williams.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Like to thank you all for showing up. Mr. Brown, I read your memo that you put on the Facebook page. Good job. I'd like to flush in a couple of details, if I may. In 2016, the financials of the city showed liquid assets in excess of $20 million. As we found out a couple of weeks ago, a significant portion of that money has been spent. It's unclear exactly where it all went, but it's gone. That much we are reasonably certain of. And it would be nice to know that it wasn't spent on frivolous items. It would be nice to be able for me to say that the water system was up and that we weren't the only city in the state of Oklahoma that had to ration this last summer. That would have been a good way to spend that money. So I hope that we can avoid those problems in the future when we're looking at the budget. How many of you actually know how much you approved to be spent tonight off the top of your head in the submittal that you were given from the city? Do you know the details of it? Do you know how much was spent on legal fees? Legal fees seem to be one thing that keep going up and up for this city. They started a few years ago at around $100,000, and now they're in excess of $400,000 a year, according to the latest information published on the website for the city. That's a big change. Where's that money going? Where's it coming from? What are you doing to result in such legal action? Please, start paying attention to these numbers. Don't let it go to waste. Bring back the city that had, the only city in this area that had excess funds when the last sales tax went down. Yukon almost fell apart when their sales tax dropped off. Didn't hear any of that in Bethany. War Acres did fall apart. Didn't hear any of that in Bethany. You have the power to fix this problem. Use it wisely.
Thank you. And believe me, we will. And my offer still stands, Mr. Williams, if you want to serve on the Citizen Budget Committee that I would like to put together, that'd be fantastic. Yes, ma'am. Were you next? Okay.
Rachel Morse.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. I am Rachel Morse, and I work for Congresswoman Kendra Horn. I am one of her constituent outreach directors, and I am just here tonight to let everyone in the Bethany area know that on this Saturday, on the 11th, from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m., Congresswoman Horn will be here in Bethany, and we are holding a town hall at the Bethany Children's Center. We will be in the Hobby Lobby room, and so we invite any and all citizens of Bethany, and especially council members, to come hear Congresswoman Horn. What we do is an open format town hall forum, and so anyone is allowed to ask a question, to make a statement, and she'll be there again from 1 to 3, and then she always takes time afterwards to visit with any and all constituents. So we welcome and hope to see you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Item 9, City Attorney's Report.
I don't have any remarks tonight, thank you.
Item 10, the City Manager's Report.
Just a couple of things tonight. I wanted to let the council know, as of late yesterday, after an extensive search and process for a new finance director, we did hire a new finance director yesterday afternoon, and that person will be starting in 2 weeks. I hope to give an introduction to the council and citizens at the next council meeting. I think something that's on everybody's mind is how we're moving through this budget process. And it's a daunting task. We are moving methodically through it. We're trying to do that with a lot of care and reasoning and looking at various options. I'll tell you that we're literally probably looking at turning the dials to adjust how we do this on hundreds of things we're looking at the same time. We're looking specifically on the very first on efficiencies that we can reach within our budget and our cost. Steve Caton, who the council and many of the citizens are very familiar with, is doing an excellent job on managing cost control, and that's one of his sole responsibilities at this point is keeping our costs under control and looking at what we're spending. And he's also in the process of doing a cost analysis on our utility system. So we'll be looking at that, and we'll be coming back to the council over the next several sessions with several different proposals for things as we work methodically through that. So again, I just wanted to provide a quick update and let everybody know that we are moving forward. We will continue that.
Thank you. Item 11 is Mayor and Council members' announcements, comments, and proposals. This evening, let's start with Mrs. Larson.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to give a big thanks to the citizens that were here tonight. taking time out of your time and family and maybe just being dog tired after work, whatever. I just appreciate you being here. And for those that watch us on the Facebook page as well, Channel 20. I also want to give a big thanks to our new city manager and all the staff that are working with him to help us get through this dilemma, or this, whatever you want to call it, that we're in, our financial position that we're in with now, because I know everyone is working very hard to make it a better situation for this city. We're going to get through this, and you all are doing a good job. It's just, it's saying so isn't enough, because I know what you're faced with. I want to offer my condolences to the Cole family in the loss of Amy's dad recently. Special family, and I know it's a tough time of the year to lose a parent. I lost both of my parents during this time of the year, and it's just horrible. But you have the memories, and that's a good thing. I also want to say that 2020 begins not only a new year, but a whole new decade for us. It's filled with opportunities beyond our wildest imagination. It's my hope that this leadership comes together with due diligence and works toward not meeting halfway to come to solutions, but to overlapping our efforts so that as to find a common ground and solution to all of our city's financial position, all of the problems that we are faced with. We want to be able to leave things in a position that can be used in the future prudently, and to have Bethany see its future the best ever. That's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Kathy. She said a couple of things that I want to say. Thanks for being here. Thanks for everybody out there watching, and always a big thanks to the employees for the great job that they do. I think we need to all come together and think about what's going on in this country. Obviously, what goes on in the city of Bethany is important to us, but we have real problems globally, and heartfelt prayers for those individuals that are spending their night in another country tonight, not knowing what the outcome might be. So I would ask everybody to pray for our troops, pray for our leaders in Washington, D.C., that they make good decisions for this country. I'd also like you to pray for the Tate family. Clay Tate is fighting for his life as we speak. So, and thank you again for being here tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Herron?
Thank you, Mayor. I have nothing tonight.
Mr. Palmer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to brag on the city staff. I got on the web page and I reported a concern. In fact, I reported 3 of them. And I didn't know if that would work. And I'm speechless. It was a prompt response, and my questions were answered. And I had never done that before. And now I'm going to recommend that everybody do that, because sometimes you don't know who to call. Sometimes you can't find the phone number. But if you have access to the city webpage, you can put all that in there, and then they will promptly respond to your request. And they haven't defined what a concern means, but I'm pretty sure it could be anything if you have an issue that you need to have addressed. That helps me as a council person, and I hope it helps the residents here in Bethany, because everybody has an issue. I had, somebody TP'd the house across the street. That's an issue. That's a concern, and I think that is something that should be reported or made available, or at least if it's a concern, you should have the option. The second item that I was going to talk about is the city of Chickasha has a great website, and they have a specific page called Financial Transparency. And if you guys can go check that out, you can see specifically all of the financial summaries, budgets, online check registers, credit card statements, claims list, payments, anything like that. And it would be my recommendation, and it should be something that the council should consider, is if those documents are being prepared anyways, they should be able to be uploaded in some format on the website as a PDF. And if you want to see trends, or if you want to see how much we paid for this or that, or salaries for this particular month within reason, as long as confidential information is redacted, then that's something that you should be entitled to in a format that you can understand and compare and contrast as to where we are and what we're doing. The other part of that is it creates a sense of accountability, not only for staff, but for the city council as we go through this. I think we have an excellent opportunity to allow new policies and procedures to be put in place related to our budgeting practices. Unfortunately, we're in a bad situation, but I think the silver lining is that we can make progress to avoid this from happening again. And I would like the city council to consider that as we go forward. And that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Powell?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have anything tonight.
Mr. Goodwin?
Thank you. I would just like to second some of what Mr. Williams said earlier in his questions, and in conversations we've had over the last number of months, been various figures thrown out, even by the former finance director I spoke with even before coming on city council and things, that number was thrown out on the 20 million. And so hoping through the state audit and things that we really learn what that was, if it was misstated in terms of listing our assets and buildings and things, or what that was, because I've heard various things on that, and so hope we do have conclusion on that, and appreciate again the numerous questions and things there. And then just second, it's always great you can talk in person, and appreciate Mr. Councilman Hunter's comments, and it's great to be able to talk in person and not just on social media, especially on something so impacting so many in our country that served in the armed forces, but also as a community that has deep faith and a legacy here, and a main tenet of Christianity. I know there's many different faiths in Bethany, but it's the Imago Dei and the image of God, and that every person is created in that image, both American, Iranian, Iraqi, whatever. And so as we pray, our prayers to those mothers and those families as well that are caught up in the midst of their leaders, the ones that go from our shores as well, and that it is hell for everyone. And so our thoughts and prayers go out across the board for as little loss of life as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Sandoval?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Thank you. I'd just like to add also, in addition to Matt, I appreciate Mr. Williams' comments, and I believe that the state audit, which won't happen overnight, will give us a lot of clarity and give us the answers that we've been seeking for quite some time on our financial situation. So I'm looking forward to that. Also, I'm a firm believer that, we are the family of Bethany, and that I will always believe that our greatest days are within reach. This is a huge hurdle that has not made me waver in my belief in any way, shape, or form. Matter of fact, it's given me a newfound hope and determination to grit our teeth, unify, come together, and make sure this happens. It's so easy to, when things seem to be going well, for people to major on the minors and minor on the majors. And it's times like these that forces everybody into a corner, and we're going to come together and we're going to major on the majors, and we're going to fight for the survival and the success of our city. That's just going to happen. You watch. When we get on the other side of this, we will be a better city, a better community, and we will be much healthier than we've ever been. I fully believe that. I also believe that there are, even though Councilmember Palmer, I appreciate you testing out the website thing. I'm glad it works. I am curious to know if there actually is a TP reporting system. However, I believe there are much more important factors than TPing, but one of those being, I believe we all know that there's so much hate and so much division in our world, in our country, in this very community, and it's going to require us coming together to be the city that we want to be. I recently saw something that was posted in a local business, and I gotta tell you that from my point of view, there is no place for any form of division, whether it's racially, sexually, religiously. All are welcome, all are important, all are created in the image of God, and everyone has a voice. And so I am thankful that even though it was several years coming that should have happened sooner, but we did vote to recognize for the city employees Dr. Martin Luther King Day in this city, and I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful that we are not going to stick our head in the sand and ignore these type of issues. It takes unifying and it takes coming together for us to be the city and the community that we want to be. We are the family of Bethany, and you watch, we will get there. With that, item 12 is new business. Do we have any new business?
Mr. Mayor, I have some new business. I would like to concede my chair on the ACOG board and provide that to Mr. Chris Powell, who has apparently volunteered to participate. And if we can do that at this point, maybe that would be something we could consider.
We have spoken about that. Mr. Powell is thankfully willing to serve in that capacity as he works downtown. Probably easier for him to get to the meetings than it is as Mr. Palmer's schedule has ramped up and a little more difficult for him to do so. However, I'm not sure that that fits within the new business that we could vote on anything like that, but that is something that we'd want the council to vote on, to appoint Mr. Powell as our ACOG representative.
Do we have any objections?
I don't think that's new business, is it?
Yeah, it has to be 24 hours notice.
Well, then my recommendation would be that it would be on the next agenda as new business or whatever it needs to be.
Okay. Any other new business? With that, we are adjourned until January 21st, 2020. I call to order the Bethany Public Works Authority. Item 1 is consent docket A and B. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Second. Please cast your votes.
All approved?
Item 2 is new business. Do we have any new business? With no new business, I declare us adjourned until January 21st, 2020. I call to order the Bethany Hospital Trust. Item 1 is consent docket A and B. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Please cast your votes.
All approved?
Item 2 is new business. Do we have any new business? With no new business, I declare us adjourned until January 21st, 2020. I call to order the Bethany Development Authority. Item 1 is consent docket A and B. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Please cast your votes.
All approved?
Item 2 is new business. Do we have any new business? With no new business, I declare us adjourned until January 21st, 2020. Thank you and good night.